Frank in West Chicago. Hey, Frank, what's up?
Hi, I'm a retired police officer, and I'd like to get your opinion on this weekend in Chicago. Was a typical Chicago weekend. 7 shot dead, 28 wounded, all in the black community, every weekend.
Yeah.
Now, how can we blame the white cops for that? I mean, this goes
No, you can't blame the white cops for that. What you can blame for that are two things. One, institutional poverty. I mean, how many if you go into those black communities, if you yourself, Frank, were to go into those black communities and find some 17, 18-year-old, 20-year-old young black man and say, okay, I'm going to help you get a job, and go out and try and find a job for that person. All right? They're just not there. The community doesn't have jobs. Our jobs, it used to be there were factory jobs available for people. They're not anymore. Our trade policies have shipped them overseas. We have, 32 years of Reaganomics has ripped apart the middle class. Even when people can find a job, they're working at the minimum wage, and they still qualify for food stamps. I mean, it's crazy. So number one, you've got a serious economic problem that is tied to race. People, black people in the United States have anywhere from 2 to 5 times the unemployment rate, depending on where they are and what their age is, of whites. Number two, you have a family wealth problem. The average black family in the United States has net wealth of around $5,000. The average white family in the United States has net wealth of around $80,000. And a lot of that, actually, you can tie back to the era from the 1940s to the late 1960s, when the GI Bill gave, and my dad was a recipient of this. He got a GI Bill, whatever that was called, mortgage for the first house that he bought in Lansing, Michigan, that I grew up in, and the GI Bill said we'll backstop your loans with the banks. But when black people went to the banks in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, the banks said, no, we're not going to lend to you, period. And particularly if they wanted to try to buy outside of certain very narrowly defined and redlined neighborhoods, those were only the only neighborhoods in many places by law that blacks could buy houses or own houses, and B, the banks refused to loan into those neighborhoods. So you've got a situation now where white wealth has dramatically increased. White wealth and black wealth were different in 1940, but they were not anywhere near as hugely different as they are today. And it's because of that 40 years of redlining and explicit discrimination combined with a government program that was designed to help grow a middle class and worked fine for white people, didn't work so well for black people. So that's issue one. The issue two is you've got populations of color and unemployment in other cities around the United States. New York City comes to mind, that are not that demographically different from Chicago, and yet you're not seeing all these shootings and killings. Why is that? Because in Chicago, over 90% of the weapons that are, and if you're a police officer, you know this, over 90% of the weapons that are recovered from within the inner city in Chicago that are used in crimes came from within 40 miles of Chicago. Whereas in New York City, that's not the case, because within 40 miles of New York City, you can't buy a gun unless you have a concealed weapons permit or you want to jump through a lot of hoops. It's really hard. New York City has very restrictive gun control laws, but so do all the states and surrounding communities. Whereas Chicago has restrictive gun control laws, but you can drive 6 minutes to the Indiana border, and there's stores right there with great big signs. Come on in, buy your guns and ammo here. And those are the guns and ammo that end up in Chicago. So, number one, you've got an economic problem. Number two, you've got an access to guns problem. Am I making sense, Frank?
Yeah, the thing that kind of gets me, though, is your typical shooting isn't a desperate man sticking up a liquor store trying to feed his family.
No, it's gangs.
There's a group gathered in a park, somebody drives by, opens fire, or you're sitting on a porch trying to enjoy, an evening sitting on your porch. Somebody drives by, opens fire, doesn't kill the intended target, kills, like this weekend, 16-year-old girl.
Yeah.
No,
Frank, this is this. My dad grew up in Chicago during the Great Depression, and this same thing was happening. My dad lived a block away from one of John Dillinger's speakeasies. He used to go down and get buckets of beer for my grandfather, and they'd sit on the front porch and drink them in a neighborhood that's now entirely black in the south side of Chicago. And because the economy was so bad, because so many people were unemployed, and because booze was illegal, You had this huge underground economy for liquor. And so you had people who were basically entrepreneurs like John Dillinger filling that need. And when they got confronted, they pulled out the Tommy guns, And this is not that different. People can't find jobs, so they're selling drugs.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 866-987-THOM.
Entrepreneurialism is genetic. I mean, it's grounded in all of us. And so, people will figure out a way to make a living somehow.